Welcome back to Horns High Studios for another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder. That means each one of these videos is less than 666 seconds or 11 minutes and 6 seconds. So not wasting any time. Let's get to it. Going back to the Idaho 4 case. Talking about specifically, though, the Moscow PD. And can we trust these guys? Now, with all my videos, remember, these are for informational purposes only. These are just my opinions and speculation. I'm not saying anybody's guilty of anything. These are just my thoughts, and I'm sharing them with you because you guys are interested in this case. All right, so the Moscow, Idaho PD have been the heart of the issue for a lot of people in this Idaho 4 case. They've done things that bring suspicion to those of us who haven't been towing that legacy media line and believing that this case is open, shut, done. You know, Brian did it, nothing to see here. Now, I'm not saying Brian is innocent. I'm just not sure. I think it's possible he played a role in this, but I don't believe he managed to do this all by himself. The police want us to believe that a guy who drove around the block 3 or 4 times, doing 3-point turns, managed to pull off a crime like this in only about 10 minutes without leaving anything at the scene but a speck of transfer DNA, which could have been a skin cell, on a knife sheath found on the 3rd floor. I'm sorry, but I'm just not buying it. It's possible he's completely innocent, of course. But remember, all suspects are presumed innocent until found guilty in court. So what about the history of the Moscow PD? I mean, all police departments have had their share of bad cops and do things that they shouldn't be doing. And they're no different, than any other organization. But when you're investigating a crime that could place the defendant in front of a firing squad, you better cross every T and dot every I. There's a police score on scorecard.org that showed 57% for Moscow. They got the same rating as Boise. But the site said that there was insufficient information about the police misconduct part of the grade and complaints from the residents. So take that for what it's worth. I've never heard of the website before I looked it up, so I was just curious if they ranked police departments, and apparently they do. One of the cases cited that I wanted to point out of some illegal activities with officers on the Moscow department is that infamous Stickergate incident in 2022, where 2 officers interrogated a minor, withheld evidence, and lied on the stand. The 2 cops were officers Gunderson and Nunez, and both were the 2 officers that responded first to 1122 King Road that morning. And while Stickergate is a crime involving some stickers that the minor and his father placed on light poles around town, it just illustrates the point that the Moscow Police Department officers in that case acted like they don't need to follow the rules and could do what they want. So is that mentality prevalent throughout the department? The department was sued by the father for the misconduct in handling his son, but I don't believe anything's been resolved there yet. Gunderson and Nunez lied and said there was no body cam of the interrogation they did of the minor, but that was later found out to be found in the footage of the evidence. If they would lie in a trivial case like Stickergate, what makes us think they won't lie here? There's also a lot of issues that have come about with the investigation, and watching the Interview Room channel, a retired detective points out that he was required to respond to a homicide when he was working within the hour and be freshly showered and wearing a Tyvek disposable coverall. The police that arrived at the scene at noon didn't have the lead detective, Corporal Brett Payne, with them, and he didn't show up till 4 hours later at 4 p.m. What was more urgent than this? I mean, that just blows my mind. Why was a detective with only 2 years on the force running this kind of investigation? He had zero experience on murder scenes while he was at the Moscow PD, and before that he was in the Army. If they had to wait 4 hours for a cop with only 2 years on the job, then why not bring in somebody with the Idaho State Police that could have probably got to the scene a lot faster than Brett Payne? Now, I did another video on the Idaho State Police and some really shady characters there that are involved in this case as well. So the police issues just are rampant in this case. Now, the coroner, Kathy Mabbitt, didn't get there until 5 p.m. And I saw an interview with her, and she said she waited to give the investigators a chance to do their job before she arrived. But if the investigators didn't show up until 4, it only took them an hour to process the crime scene? I surely doubt that. So was she telling the truth about why she showed up at 5? I don't know. Or was she truthful and that was just how they do it? I'm not sure. With all the friends of the victims arriving at the house before the police, we've heard as early as 8 o'clock, then certainly that crime scene was compromised. Did the police get the names of everybody there and take DNA and shoe impressions so they could be eliminated as suspects? Another thing that the Interview Room channel had brought up was that there was cars in the parking lot that should have been thoroughly searched for evidence in case the attacker or attackers were in the vehicles at some point. Then they would have been towed from the scene and kept by the police safe. And this guy was there 10 days later and said the cars were still in the parking lot and he couldn't believe it. Now, this same retired detective from the Interview Room was there at the scene 10 days later. He actually was the one that found that black glove out there on the sidewalk in plain sight, partially covered with snow, but very visible. How did the police not see this? I mean, he was actually the one who found the glove. I just can't believe that. I mean, this, and it had an unknown DNA sample, male DNA on it. Was that tested? Or was, that also just kind of swept under the rug? I don't know. Now, when the Moscow PD was seen taking the belongings of the roommates from the house, that seemed very odd to me. First of all, what was so urgent in the stuff they were taking out of there that the family had to have this stuff? I mean, was it processed correctly? I didn't see anything in bags or plastic. They were just carrying stuff out. I mean, normally they bring in contractors who specialize in that kind of stuff. I had never seen police do that before. I mean, what was also strange about the video of the undercover officers that were there, and I saw that on Crime Circus, Drip Drop pointed out the cowboys, he called them. They wore cowboy hats. There was like 4 or 5 of them, looking very shifty, covering their faces as they left the house. The media was out there talking to them. Nobody would say anything to them. They just got in the van and left. And one of them looked like he was carrying something, but it was concealed. I mean, what was that? That was certainly very suspicious. Were they state cops? Were they FBI? Nobody knows. We know how the handling of the evidence was huge in the O.J. Simpson case. How much scrutiny will the Moscow Police Department be able to handle when cross-examined by Ann Taylor about how they followed procedures? From what we've seen so far, probably not very well. Can the prosecution case against Bryan Kohberger fall apart without some solid crime scene investigation? It could. And then what? This will possibly allow the guilty to walk free. And that's a horrible realization. Watch out for my other video about Detective Tolson from the Idaho State Police that came out the other day. Definitely some shady behavior there. Now, Moscow Police Chief Fry, Prosecutor Bill Thompson, and Judge are all University of Idaho graduates. Can this be a fair trial, especially if a change of venue is not granted? I mean, the entire town is full of employees and graduates from that school, and the town relies on that school for its survival. So I don't know. I do want to say thank you to Yvonne for helping me get some of this information together. I really appreciate that. You guys comment below. Let me know what you guys think. And as always, I want to say thank you to the members of the Horns Eye Club. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. It's $1.99 if you're interested in joining the membership. But even if you don't, I appreciate you all being here for another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder.